Yeah, I'm all ready to get started here.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for joining us today for MACAC. And thank you for all the MACAC members and other people that are joining us today. This is Michael Dennison from the U.S. Naval Academy, Lieutenant Michael Dennison. He's working as a field admission counselor out of the Chicago office, and he's going to answer a lot of our questions today about the military academies. So the first thing I had, Michael, is can you talk about the difference between applying to the Naval Academy, West Point, Air Force, and Coast Guard? And the
Yeah,
difference.
I gladly answer that. So the question was, what's the difference between, all five service academies? Quickly before I start that, I just want to give a quick intro about myself. As mentioned, Lieutenant Michael Dennison. I'm from the Chicago area. Born and raised in Chicago, and like a long time ago, back when I was a senior in high school, I didn't know where I was going for school. I thought I was going to go to a Big Ten school, stay within the Midwest, because that's what I really wanted. Then a representative like myself came to my high school and spoke about the Naval Academy. Had no clue what it was, but I seemed interested because it was free school. And I applied, I got in, and I went with the intention only going for 1 year and transfer out to my dream school, which was University of Michigan. But the first year went by really fast and really well. And I'm like, man, I actually like it here. So I stayed all 4 years, got my degree in mechanical engineering. And I service selected, so job after the Navy, service warfare officer on the ship, leading my own division, ultimately become a commanding officer of a ship someday if I choose. Brief introduction about myself, but to answer a question with the differences between the service academies. So there's 5 service academies. The main ones that most people think of are the United States Military Academy, West Point, the United States Air Force Academy, and the United States Naval Academy. They have the Merchant Marine Academy, as well as the Coast Guard Academy. So we're very similar in that we all get a Bachelor of Science upon graduation, but there are some minute differences. Some of the differences include the locations of each service academy. So to start off here, the U.S. Military Academy is located in West Point, New York, which is kind of upstate New York, about an hour and a half outside New York City. What's different about there is they have a large campus. I believe the campus is over, I want to say 20,000 acres. They just have so much land in comparison, like the Naval Academy, which is only 350 acres. They also have 36 majors, which is actually more than we offer at the Naval Academy, being 26 majors in total. Then next is the United States Coast Guard Academy. Not many people know about this. It's a much smaller service academy. It's located in New London, Connecticut. Upon commissioning or completing your time at the U.S. Coast Guard Academy, then commissioned to the Coast Guard as a officer. They only have 9 majors to choose from, but what's important to know is that there does not require a congressional nomination to attend the U.S. Coast Guard Academy. The next is the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. This is located in Kings Point, New York. We call them King Pointers as well. Also of the smaller size, they only have 5 majors. And what's unique about the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy is that you do spend a year out at sea on a ship as a part of your 4 years of Merchant Marine Academy. So essentially, you'd be in Kingsport, New York for 3 years. Then the other year, you're going to be abroad on a ship somewhere. Then you can choose to serve in the armed forces, or you can choose to serve in the merchant mariner fleet, so driving big ships essentially and transporting goods. Then next is the U.S. Air Force Academy, which is located in Colorado Springs, Colorado. You can commission to the Air Force or the Space Force afterwards. They have 26 majors available. Again, it's different than Naval Academy is that it's in Colorado Springs, lots of land, I guess to say, and then the U.S. Naval Academy. So we're located in Annapolis, Maryland, which is the capital of Maryland. So we're located in a nice small town. On done your time at the Naval Academy, then commissioned to the Navy and Marine Corps. We have over 26 majors to choose from, and definitely a much smaller campus, being 350 acres. So we pack a lot onto that small campus. Thank you for listening.
No, that's great. Is there any? Can you talk about any differences in the application process for those different academies?
Good question. Are there any application differences between the service academies? Inherently, no. The only difference is the U.S. Coast Guard Academy doesn't do nominations, so there's no nominations needed. And let me back up a bit. So attending a service academy, you need a congressional nomination from an official congressional source. Congressional nomination is essentially a member of Congress endorsing you to go to the Naval Academy. which is not needed for U.S. Coast Guard Academy. But aside from that, we still have very similar application processes that you do a candidate fitness assessment. It's kind of like what we call a CSA or a fitness test that you do. It's imposed on a 1 mile run, sit-ups or crunches, push-ups, pull-ups, or the flex arm hang for women who cannot do pull-ups, and some cone runs and a basketball throw down on your knees. It's not supposed to simulate you throwing a grenade, but it's supposed to measure your core strength to see how far you can throw a basketball. So that's the physical portion of it. There's also a medical portion of it. It's done by outside entity called the Department of Defense Medical Examination Review Board, DOTMOD for short. I know that's a mouthful. So essentially, for all service academies, you go through this DoD entity that evaluates you medically for each service academy. Important to note that one thing that disqualifies you medically for one service academy doesn't necessarily disqualify you for another one. So we all have a different medical requirements. So just because a student disqualifies medically for West Point doesn't mean they automatically disqualify for the U.S. Naval Academy.
Oh, that's interesting. So most of the students there are going to have to have some kind of athletic ability or something before they're going to even apply to these academies. What about leadership? Or talk to me about a little bit more about the athletic.
Good question. So the question was, you know, a lot of kids come to Naval Academy, have some athletic background, but what about their leadership opportunities throughout high school? If you were to take a look at our class portrait, which goes through all the statistics of each incoming class. So for class of 2023, I actually have it right here. I'm just to answer a question. So you can kind of see the trends between each class. I'm looking at this right here. But it gives you the composition of each class. And this is for the class of 2023, which will be graduating this year, of course. So the composition. So 92% of that class did varsity athletics. Then about 90% did community service. And about 72% were captain or co-captain of a sports team. So you kind of get a sense of like what kind of students we're looking for. A lot of varsity athletes throughout their high school career, a lot of community service. And to touch on that leadership point, I always say quality over quantity. It's good to be a part of multiple clubs, but it's also good to be the leader or chairman or director of some of your clubs. So I like to see that, you know, you're president of some clubs rather than being a member of multiple different clubs. And not just that, there's some unofficial leadership positions, right? Like maybe your parents work in the evening time, so you have to take care of your siblings. So you're kind of like the head of your house in the evening time. That's also unofficial leadership that we look for, and you can report on your application.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. That's interesting. So do all of the academies have summer programs? And if they do attend a summer program, does that help them get into the program later?
Good question. Do all the service academies have summer programs? I can speak about the big three being West Point, Air Force, and Naval Academy. Yes, those three do have summer programs. The U.S. Military Academy calls it the Summer Leaders Experience. It's for the rising 12th graders. And it's a good experience of what it's like to be a cadet at West Point. I believe these are 6-day programs, and they have 2 different sessions to attend. And the U.S. Air Force Academy, they have a summer seminar, just like we call our summer seminar, held in the month of June. Again, it's like what life is like as a cadet at the Air Force Academy, held on campus, ran by the cadets there at the Air Force Academy. Then of course, the U.S. Naval Academy. So we actually have 2 different summer programs. We have our summer seminar program for rising seniors, kind of like what life is like as a freshman at the Naval Academy, ran by our students. And we also have our summer STEM program for our rising 9th, 10th, and 11th graders. It's not military at all. We're not yelling at you. It's a summer STEM camp. Just to get kids more involved in STEM. The students get to use our facilities. It's ran by the professors, and the students help out. And essentially, these kids are just doing science projects for 6 days and get to meet a lot of kids from all over the U.S.
Is it easier for them to get into the academies after attending one of those programs in the summer?
Good question. Is it easier for them to attend the service academy after attending one of those programs? It's not a necessity that you attend any summer program. It's more so an outreach. But usually, like at the Naval Academy, I would say like 25 to 30% of people of the incoming class did summer seminar. Not a requirement, it just happens that a lot of people do it. They get a sense of like, get to see our campus, what life is like as a freshman. Would I be interested in this? It's not to like recruit you, but more so kind of see if it's for you. So
That's
But
great.
no, it's not a necessity. I didn't do summer seminar.
Yeah.
Actually, I didn't even know of it because it was too late by the time I was applying.
So the U.S. Merchant Marines serve a year at sea. You mentioned that before. And they always do it in the last year, is that correct?
I'm unfamiliar when they do it. I have to ask one of my friends who went to Merchant Marine Academy, but I know at 1 year at some point, you are doing a year at sea.
And it's always, and then at sea, are they still taking classes or how does that work?
Yeah, so they're still taking classes. I'm not sure how it works. I think it's done virtually. So kind of like you get on your laptop, you log on, and you still have some classes to complete while at sea on this ship.
Okay. And can you talk a little bit about the commitment afterwards for the different academies?
Correct. So a different commitment afterwards. So at a minimum for each service academy, there's a 5-year service commitment for all that free school, because school's free, but the way you pay it back through that 5-year service commitment. But it's kind of an asterisk next to that. It kind of depends on what you do. So I said at a minimum it ends up being 5 years, and at a maximum, depending on what you do, say you want to become a Navy doctor or Air Force doctor, that time accrues and ends up being like maybe 15 years of service that you owe for all that med school that the Navy or Air Force paid for. So it can range from anywhere from 5 to 15 years per se. I know very popular, everyone wants to fly, so aviators, right? Their 5-year commitment doesn't start until after they achieve their or get their wings or until they're qualified to fly planes. So it typically takes about 2 years to go through flight school, whether it's Air Force or Navy. And then your 5 years start after that. So it ended up being like 7 to 9 years, depending on the platform you learn to fly. Because if you learn to fly jets, that takes like 4 years of schooling. It's a really long time.
Oh, that's interesting. So are you finding more women joining the service academies? And if so, what areas or which ones are more attractive to the females?
Do I find more women joining the military? I would say yes, from my standpoint. Back when I was my freshman class, 2012 is when I started my freshman year. I believe my class was about 23% female. And 2 years before COVID hit, we're up to 35% females. And it's been like almost 10 years, we almost grown 10% in our women population. Now we float around 30%. That's usually around the number that we get year to year. So definitely see an increase from since I was at school. But I can't speak about the other service academies, so they see an increase in their women applications as well.
Okay, and then is there any certain majors that people are looking for? Is it just a big variety, just the same as it is for the men going in?
Yeah, same as the men going in. There's women span the variety.
Okay, so we assume that Air Force Academy has a top aeronautics program, but does Navy have one too? And also, what would be their top majors there?
Correct. So Air Force is big in aeronautical engineering, but so is the U.S. Naval Academy. So that's one of our bigger majors at the Naval Academy, being aerospace engineering. Mechanical engineering is also a very popular major. And I have to go to my slides really quick. But yeah, those are like the two big engineering programs at the Naval Academy, and we're top 10. I have to go to my cheat sheet here, but we're top 10 in a few of our majors.
Aeronautical and chemical, you said?
No, we don't have chemical engineering.
What was the other one that you said I missed?
Mechanical, sorry.
Mechanical, okay.
Let's see my cheat sheet here. So the U.S. News and World Report has us as the number 5 aerospace engineering program, number 5 undergraduate engineering program, number 9 mechanical engineering program, number 10 electrical engineering program. So those are kind of the statistics for our engineering programs.
That's great. So do the academies offer study abroad? And if so, where do most people go?
Good question. Does the Academy offer study abroad programs? Yes, we do. You don't just need to be a language major to study abroad. My roommate was an aeronautical engineer, and he studied abroad in Singapore. But I'm looking at our chart here. It spans from anywhere from South America to Canada to a lot of like Western Europe, and in some places we used to do China, but not anymore. But it spans. I see this map I'm looking at. I see kids who study abroad in Canada, Chile, looks like somewhere in Western Africa,
Wow.
Western Europe, on the edge of China. I'm not sure what countries there are, Japan. So there's a lot of different places to study abroad. So you do have the opportunity at the Naval Academy.
Do most people participate in that or take advantage of it, or no?
I'd say it's highly competitive to study abroad at any service academy because we have a track that's all laid out before us for our major. And to study abroad, you have to be ahead of your track, meaning that you have to validate some courses because essentially they pause your GPA and your classes for one semester. So essentially, you have to be one semester ahead in order to take that opportunity to go abroad or be a language major because it's built into your track to go abroad, to study abroad.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So the Marine Corps falls under the Department of Navy. So can you explain how students choose that area?
Correct. So the Marine Corps falls under the Department of the Navy. About a fifth of our graduates go into Marine Corps. It's kind of two different routes you can go. You can go Marine Air, so you can fly in the Marine Corps just like you can fly in the Navy. They fly very similar aircraft as the Navy does. You all go to the same flight school in Pensacola, Florida. And then the other half can go Marine Ground. When I say Marine Ground, it's more than just infantry. It's actually highly competitive to get. It includes jobs like logistics, the public affairs, human resources, combat engineer. There's a lot to do in the Marine Corps with 30 different jobs to choose from. And so you do some training leading up to that. You have the opportunity to put in for the Marine Corps. So as I said, a fifth of our graduates go into the Marine Corps after graduation.
Oh, that's good. What about congressmen or reps? Do they usually nominate more than one student from a certain school, from any given school?
Good question. So the question is about nominations. As I said, a nomination is required to attend 4 out of 5 service academies, not the Coast Guard Academy. But congressional representatives are given nominations. They're given 5 nominations or 5 seats at any service academy at any time. When one's vacant, they can fill that seat. For every vacancy, they can submit up to 10 names for that one vacancy. So essentially, they usually have like a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, and a senior at one of the service academies. They have an extra seat as well that's usually filled. And once one is vacant, so say that senior graduates, they then have one vacancy, so they can submit up to 10 names for that one vacancy.
Oh, that's interesting.
So you're really competing in like a pool of 10 people for that congressional nomination.
Yeah, that's okay. So how difficult is it for students to get the appointment that they want upon graduation? And how do they doing that, choosing that?
So I believe about 90% get their first or second choice for service selections, we call it, for jobs in the Navy. I would say it's pretty similar amongst every service academy. It's like, it's a pretty good chance you're going to get what you want to get unless you like medically disqualify. The way it works is like, say you want to do aviation, you do some training leading up to that. Kind of qualifies you for aviation, or say you want to be a submariner on a submarine, you do some technical interviews leading up to that that qualifies you to go into that specific job in the Navy. So you do some training leading up to it and you have a pretty good sense if you're qualified or not.
So most people are pretty happy upon graduation if they have the
I would say about
commitment that they want.
90% are typically happy.
Okay, that's good.
92%, sorry.
So most of the academies are very strong STEM schools. So do you suggest that all students that are applying have both AP Calc and AP Stats, or mainly AP Calc?
So good question. We are STEM-based. Every service academy graduates with a Bachelor of Science. We look for that STEM focus. It is recommended to have a strong foundation in science and math within your high school career. So we look for, pre-calculus, have you taken chemistry and physics with labs if possible? You continue to challenge yourself at your high school even after you're taking pre-calc. So we like to see that you continue to like strive to take the highest math course at your school to better prepare you at the Naval Academy.
Okay, so the highest one, no matter what it is, basically.
Correct, because built into our track, so you're just a normal student coming into the Naval Academy. The first math class you start off with is Calculus 1. So it would behoove you to take AP Calc in high school because you can possibly test out of Calc 1 or just be better prepared so you can get an easy A. I wouldn't say easy A, but a better grade in that Calc 1 class your first semester.
Makes sense. Good. So can you tell me about the academies and their test flexibility for applying?
So the Naval Academy, so I can't talk right now. The Naval Academy, so we're test flexible. What that really means is if you take an exam to make your scores, but we do understand that some states don't require students to take the exam anymore. I know in the state of Illinois, all high school students are still required to take a standardized exam, or that be ACT or SAT. But some schools out west don't require students to take the test anymore. So if you take an exam, submit your scores, but if not, we understood if COVID, it has now affected standardized testing. We understand if you did not take the exam, but submit your test scores if you did take them.
So if they haven't taken the exam, do they request other kind of test scores from them? Like AP tests or
no,
anything
you
else?
just submit a statement saying that, I did not take the exam, and it's an extra statement you submit.
There has to be a good reason for that.
Typically, yes.
Okay. And our student decisions of the students that are accepted to these academies, is it done in a committee? Is it done by one person, or how does that work?
Oh, can you say that question one more time? Sorry.
When you're making the decisions as to who's going to be accepted into the academies, who is it made? Is that decision made in a committee, or is it made by one rep?
So it's made by a committee. There's an academic review board that all students go before, and a board of people are choosing who gets selected to be a part of the class of 2027 coming up here.
Okay, so it's always it. So is it difficult for non-binary transgender students to apply, and do they receive any kind of medical waivers for that?
Good question. That's actually a really good question, because recently, I believe last year, we had our first trans student admitted into Naval Academy, and medical waivers are granted for whatever medication that person may be on for their transition. So I wouldn't say it's difficult. It's definitely possible, because now we have the first, so I'm sure there'll be many more to come to Naval Academy who are trans, male or female.
And do you see that happening at the other academies as well? Are they pretty much following out the same rules?
I don't know that. I should probably ask another admission counselor, maybe at West Point. I'm not sure if they've had any trans students yet admitted into their institutions.
But you guys are ahead of it. Okay. So I assume that students that have accommodations in high school can still apply with accommodations and so forth. How does that affect their application?
How does that affect their application? So if you're taking, say, medication, we like to see that incoming students are off medication. But that's not to say midshipmen or students in the Naval Academy aren't on medication. But say you need a medication to help your, not disability, but your accommodation. We like to see incoming freshmen not on any medication. But that's also done by the medical people, not me as a mission counselor. So that's as much as I know about that side.
Okay. And what about U.S. Military Academy Letter of Assurance? Can you talk a little bit about that and what that means?
Yeah, so letter of assurance.
Who qualifies?
So letter of assurance, or LOA, is a conditional offer to the Naval Academy or any service academy. That's saying that we're going to hold a seat in the class of 2027 for you as long as you complete your application and obtain that nomination. So it's almost like a guarantee. Service Academy's version of early notify. We just got to finish your application and get that nomination. And those are highly competitive students who, we look really good. So we would love for them to come to Naval Academy.
And most of the academies, most of the military academies have the same thing, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, so Michael, if you want to show, you mentioned that you had some slides. If you want to show any of those slides and any that might touch on any areas that I haven't touched on, that'd be awesome.
I was just going to jump in and say we had one question in the Q&A that was, is there an admissions deadline or is it rolling admissions? So maybe you can talk a little bit about the timeline for applications.
Yeah, correct. So timeline for applications. For the Naval Academy specifically, the application process for, say, you're entering your senior year, let's back up during the summertime. You can actually start your preliminary application during the summertime. That essentially opens the application in the class of 2028, say for next year or this coming summer. So you can start your application as soon as June. I guess some kids don't their application by July time. And you have all the way from June until January 31st of the following year to finish your application. That's a hard deadline, January 31st of your senior year to finish the application. Then all candidates are notified of their decision by April 15th. So that's a general timeline for admission.
Okay, great. January 31st, yeah. Okay, and Hannah's put in a lot of the summer academy information, registration, and all kinds of stuff in there for MACAC. So if you, let me see, I don't see any more questions right now.
I was just throwing stuff in the chat links and stuff, and then a little plug for the annual conference and other upcoming webinars. But do we have more questions? It looks like there's no more questions in the Q&A. Do other people have other questions coming up as they're listening?
Yeah, put those in the chat if you do. Otherwise, Michael, did you want to show us any kind of PowerPoint slides or?
I can go through it, but a lot of it was answered through me speaking just now. So I can go through it, but I answer a lot of it.
You don't think we touched on that you want to make sure people hear?
1 second, looking through my slides. Just to touch on curriculum one more time, as you know, everyone gets a Bachelor of Science at the service academies. But what's important to know, at least at the Naval Academy, we have a core curriculum. And students don't choose their major until the end of their freshman year. Then you start your major beginning of your sophomore year. So sometimes it can be challenging for especially a lot of STEM majors, as a lot of our graduates graduate with a STEM degree, because you start your major your sophomore year. So me as a mechanical engineer, I didn't start my major until sophomore year, and everyone graduates in 4 years. So essentially, you can complete an engineering degree within 3 years. So built into my track with 25 credit hours of coursework, just because you're kind of forced to finish your degree within that 4 years. So sometimes that can be challenging for some people, but it's important to know that you don't choose your major until the end of your freshman year, starting at the beginning of your sophomore year.
Okay. Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
Then I also want to touch on sports as well, because I get a lot of questions on sports. But as a mission counselor, I'm not really involved with the sports portion. But the big 3 service academies are Division I schools, so NCAA recruitment rules apply. The Naval Academy has over 35 varsity sports. Like, you name a sport, we probably have it. Besides bowling, I know I get that question a lot. But if students are interested in like playing sports at the Naval Academy, you go to navysports.com. You contact that sports team coach. You can start the recruitment process. And we compete in the Patriots League and American League. I know our men's track and field won their league 2 years in a row. Just last year, we had a kid drafted in the Major League Soccer, so professional soccer here in the States, 5th overall. One of my classmates got drafted in the NFL. So we do produce athletes at the next level, but that's not really the reason why you come to Naval Academy.
Oh, that's great. That's interesting. Anything else?
1 second.
Don't see any other questions coming in.
No, that's really about all I have. I went through majority of the presentation I would have showed you anyway. So thank you for all those insightful questions. And I can post my information here in the chat. So if you want to shoot me an email or a text on my work phone, I'm more than welcome to answer any questions you may have. I am located in Chicago, Illinois, but I do come back to the Detroit area in Michigan and all over through Michigan. So if you love for me to visit your school, I love to work that out, because I come usually once a month for a week at a time back to the Michigan area, because I am the admission counselor for Illinois and Michigan. So I love to get up to Michigan as well.
Good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, if you put, did you get that in there? Yes, great. Lieutenant Michael Dennison, thank you so much for all of this information. I hope this was helpful to all the counselors out there. And we're looking forward to seeing you again, hopefully in the fall, right?
Yeah, hopefully in the fall time.
Okay.
1 second, let me post my work phone that I don't have memorized. There we go. But yeah, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I put my email as well as my number in the chat. So if you want to shoot me a text or email, it doesn't matter. I'm here to answer all your questions. I really appreciate you having me today.
There's a few other questions that have come up. So if that's
yeah, of course.
Is there tuition fees for students in the military academies?
Are there tuition fees for students in the military academies? No, that's the benefit of coming to service academy, is that school is completely free. Room and board, tuition, medical, dental, your books each semester, your laptop that you get, your printer, everything's free. So really there's no fees associated with the military academies to include the application as well. Really the only thing you're paying for is transportation once you do get accepted to Naval Academy. And even we have financial aid available for some students who can't afford that. So there's no expense that really comes out the student pockets. like I said, that you don't pay to go to school, we pay you to go to school. Each student receives a stipend each month. The full amount is $1,200 a month, but you don't see that full amount because a lot gets deducted for all that free stuff you get. So in all actuality, I think freshmen see about $125 a month the freshman year, up to $500, $600 a month your senior year, which doesn't sound like that much money, but when you're not paying for anything, that's quite a lot of cash for a young student to have.
Yeah, it just accumulates. That's great. Do you ever do workshops for parents and students? Is another question.
Yeah, I do work with parents and students. If you just contact me, we can do another Zoom or Google Meet meeting, and I can go through a presentation or questions and answers, go through the application process. But yeah, I do workshops for parents and students, which is very common because parents are just as interested as the students, because not much is known about the service academies and life of the service academy.
No, that's great. Thank you so much. The other question is, can we share this? We're going to post this recording of this webinar on the MACAC website. And so the question from the counselor was, can they share it with other students?
Please do.
Okay. That's great. And parents too. We're good with that. Okay, I think that's it.
Perfect.
If there's any more questions, pop them into the. And Hannah, you have a lot of good stuff, a lot of information in that chat. That's awesome. So I appreciate that. I don't see any more coming up, so I'll let Michael go because I know he's got to run off to some other place right now. Right? Thank you so much. And we'll be seeing you again soon. Thank you so much. And thanks for those that attended today.
Awesome. Thank you.